welcome to Lunchtime Politics, reaching live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo. Here's what's coming up on the program right now. Defense headquarters warn organizers of the End Bad Governance protest to avoid violence in expressing their rights to freely assemble, as the military won't condone any form of excesses. Minority caucus of the People's Democratic Party in the House of Representatives asked the federal government to engage with planned protesters to curb a potential breakdown of law and order. His Royal Majesty Amonabane Doko Apolopolo Opaware II, the Oba of Benin, urges protesters to give the federal government time to tackle the current economic challenges. Thanks again for joining us on the program. We're heavy on this planned protest that is just days away. So we begin on a rather sober note before we get to all of that, following the death of at least 3 persons after a building collapse at Arowojobe Estate in Maryland area of Lagos State. The Permanent Secretary, Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, Dr. Oluwafemi Osaitolu, who confirmed this in a statement, says the incident happened at number 13 Wilson Mba Street in Maryland, and the casualties were site workers, all of them male. He explained how the agency received a distress call regarding a collapsed building at about 3:49 a.m. and this prompted the immediate activation of his response team to the scene at 3:58 a.m. and it was discovered that a set of 3 terraces under construction had collapsed. Let's also tell you that 7 days to the planned nationwide protest over the economic hardship in the country, the military has warned organizers of the protest against any form of violence. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, at a press briefing in Abuja, warned that the military won't allow anarchy to befall the country. General Buba said although citizens have a right to express their grievances, the military won't condone any form of violent gathering or protest.
The level of violence being envisaged can only be described as a state of anarchy. The armed forces on its part will not stand by and allow anarchy to befall our nation. This is because we have seen wars and have witnessed anarchy in countries in which we have operated, particularly during the times of ECOMOG or during our peacekeeping operations in various countries. I believe that some people out there may fantasize about war or state of anarchy, thinking that it is like what they see in the movies. I assure you that war or a state of anarchy is not what you see in the movies. It involves real people, real situations, and real life.
Well, the tone is slightly different from the federal government, who are still appealing for more time, maintaining that efforts are on to address the current economic challenges. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris, who made the appeal after a closed-door meeting between ministers and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, asked Nigerians to shelve the plots of the planned protest. According to the minister, there is no need for a protest, as government will continue engaging with all stakeholders to address all issues in the interest of the country.
Against the backdrop of the planned nationwide protest on the 1st of August, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation summoned the ministers of President Tinubu's cabinet to an emergency meeting. After the meeting, which held behind closed doors, Ministers speak on the outcome with an appeal to Nigerians.
There's no need for any protest. Let us all calm down. A lot is happening. Nigeria is going to move and march on. And we believe that whatever government comes up will be in the interest of Nigeria. We don't think that there is need for any protest. We are appealing for calm. We are appealing for a peaceful resolution or peaceful approach to any issue.
Advise my fellow young Nigerians to disassociate themselves from the planned protest. We need to look at the entire Nigerian project and what the impact of the economic reforms, especially the macroeconomic reforms of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration.
In a related development, the Minister of Information and National Orientation hosts a meeting with members of the Charismatic Bishops' Conference. The planned nationwide protest is the point of discussion here, as the minister maintains that the federal government makes a pledge to uphold people's rights to protest.
The president is not an opponent of protest of any kind, but the president is an opponent of violence. He is an opponent of anything that will negatively hamper the well-being of Nigerians. We know that it is almost impossible to hold this protest and then have peace at the end of the day.
We have rather decided to go all out and call for a truce. We have decided to sue for peace and to humbly request that our brothers and sisters who are aggrieved in one way or the other, that they will allow some time while we continue to communicate and negotiate with this government on the areas that are pertinent to them.
The minister adds that the federal government is working on a policy to pay students of tertiary institutions and unemployed graduates some stipends pending their formal employment. From Abuja, Victoria Long John for Channels Television News.
In the meantime, the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, has advised against the planned protest by some Nigerians, saying the timing is wrong. He was speaking with State House correspondents shortly after a meeting with President Bola Tinubu over party development. Governor Uzodinma also thanked the president for signing the Southeast Development Commission bill into law.
I think it is a wrong time for anybody to do any protest, because the implication of doing that, if care is not taken, is that it may be hijacked, like the NSAS experience, where criminals now hijacked and innocently conceived agitation by young Nigerians. So this is another kind of temptation that I think too, that those behind the protest, because they have not been able to come out openly to say they are behind it, there is something that is a motive that is yet to be unraveled. So I think that we are not in support of the protest. We are not going to support any protest that has no programs, that is not discussed, that nobody knows what the problems are. Okay, if you are protesting, what do you want government to do? Because the reason for protest is that they want an issue to be addressed. What are the issues? So in my view, I think there is no need to overheat the polity, overheat our environment, and put our people in a position that the hardship that is occasioned by economic recession all over the world is further worsened. So I advise against the protest. And the people of Southeast, particularly the leadership and the Southeast Governors Forum, which I'm the chairman, we're indeed very grateful. We're very happy with that. It means that the neglect we've been crying for a very long time is being addressed now by the national government. So we owe this glory to Almighty God and to Mr. President for being able to do this justice to our people.
And to that royal appeal coming from His Royal Majesty Omonabanedo Hukwa Polopolo Eware II, the Oba of Benin, asking the federal government to intensify effort in the implementation of its economic and security policies. This appeal contained in the palace public announcement issued on the authority of Oba of Benin by the Chief Press Secretary to the Benin monarch. The Oba in his message also appealed to members of the public to give the federal government more time to implement its economic policy designed to alleviate the current hardship Nigerians are experiencing in the country. His Royal Majesty, who notes that for things to get better, it has to be tough for a while, therefore appeals to those planning the August the 1st protest to shelve such plan. And let's also tell you that the Minority Caucus of the House of Representatives wants the federal government to open a channel of dialogue with those planning to organize a protest against the cost of living in the country. This was part of the caucus resolution at the end of a session dinner in Abuja. The minority leader of the House, Mr. Kingsley Chinda, who spoke to journalists, stated this while appealing against the protests over the background of insecurity in parts of the country. And still on the planned protest, the National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, has threatened to take to the streets over the high cost of living in the country. The president of the Senate of the association, who spoke to journalists at the Aminu Kano College of Islamic Studies, laments the high cost of fuel, fees, and food items. According to him, the situation is difficult for ordinary students, and they are asking the government to reverse the policies that caused the hardship in the first place. And 7 days ahead of that nationwide protest. So people are divided on it. Should there be, shouldn't there be? Depending on who you're listening to. And we've been joined in the program to further speak on this particular issue by the former Deputy Director of the Department of State Services, Mr. Dennis Amakri, joins us via Zoom from the United States. Mr. Amakri, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good afternoon, Geoffrey.
You know, literally besides the collapsed building that happened in Lagos earlier this morning, every other story I took, about 6 of them, has to do with this planned nationwide protest. So from an intelligence point of view, because you belong to the intelligence community, what's your interpretation of the pulse of the polity?
Well, you see, the thing is that people are expressing their fundamental human rights. And then, of course, when you look at democracy, we say we are practicing democracy. Now, in democracy, one of the fundamental rights is the right, freedom of association, and then, of course, the freedom of speech. You know, but when we practice or exercise this freedom, there are people that are also thinking that they can overstep the freedom of other people. Because where your freedom ends is where the freedom of other people begins. You know, so right now, things are very bad in the country. Things are really, really bad, and people are struggling. The president has come out to say that he's doing something about it. I think that he should do more. He should engage more with the civic society. There must be some more town hall meetings, traditional rulers, students, all kinds of people. But at the same time, because there was something that happened in Kenya, a lot of people are feeling that, oh yeah, we want what happened in Kenya to happen here, you know. And so what is the reason? It's not that if it happens here, it's going to change anything. They want it to happen in Nigeria so that they can go and loot the shops that they've been eyeing all this while, you know. So the security agencies cannot sit down and say, oh, it's your fundamental human right, so go ahead and do what you want to do. They have to double their efforts now. And of course, this is a leaderless group, because one of the ways to diffuse this is to talk to the leaders. But the leaders are not there. There is no particular person that comes out to say, I am the leader. You know, so we have to be very, very careful. And in fact, I would say that there are patriotic people that are trying to do this protest in fundamental human rights, exercise their fundamental human rights. But the way it is already, from the intelligence we are gathering, this protest has been hijacked already. And if I am part of those people, original planners, I think we'll start to tell them to abandon that ship. Because this thing, if it goes on, I think the hoodlums will be very happy to use it.
So, Mr. Makri, this is a concern. Great points you've made, but this is a concern for some Nigerians who say whenever people want to converge, there is always the intelligence community always coming to say it has been hijacked, it will be hijacked, it has been hijacked, it will be hijacked. At what point should people now come out to express their genuine grievances and displeasure over policies of government that has led us to where we are? Because the danger here is that when we continue to use this intelligence fly on the wall remarks to say it has been hijacked, it will be hijacked, there may be pent-up anger, and the day it explodes, it may consume all of us. What do you make of that?
I agree with you perfectly. You know, the thing is that, I'll tell you something. Yesterday in Washington, D.C., the Prime Minister of Israel was in the United States to address a joint session of the Congress, a joint session of the Congress. And there were people, in fact, there were two groups. One of the groups went into the rotunda, the round big hall inside the Congress. They were all wearing the same uniform. They are still wearing Save Israel or something like that. They came, they sat down, they were singing and clapping. The policemen, I was watching, the policemen were standing all around the place watching them. And there was another group of people, who are anti-Netanyahu protesters outside. And they were also carrying their placards and going around. And the police was also there, watching them, and they were, singing and waving their banner and everything. No shots were fired, nobody died, and nobody was beaten. Everybody behaved himself. So you find out that, yes, it's a democratic right, but in our own, I have been in the security service for long. You will find out even NSAS, you discover that when NSAS started, the President Buhari at that time was communicating with them. The Lagos State governor took some of their demands and went to Abuja and were talking to the president. Everything was okay until these hoodlums inject themselves into the place and then started, the rowdy situation. And of course, security agencies can never sit down and watch this to happen. So they have to scatter the gathering. So it is very incumbent on even people who are trying to organize things like this to make sure that nobody break their ranks. And then, of course, nobody who they don't know, try to inject themselves into the situation. So this is where we are, because you cannot say, okay, go ahead, or these people will say it has been hijacked already, But for this particular one, I can tell you, because a lot of people are thinking that Kenya is going to happen in Nigeria. It will not. That's a different country, and I don't believe that what is happening in Kenya is going to happen in Nigeria.
At the end of the day, it's about the economy, because I try to make sure we stay within the context of the conversation. At the end of the day, is about the economy. So, but in trying to interpret what is going on, this maybe faceless group, we understand the pains of Nigeria. Now it's a question of who is leading the pack. Some would say, like NSAS, they don't want a leader so that they will not be maybe arrested or molested or whatever it is that the word we use. But I want you to speak to the messaging from the presidency, which is of concern to those of us who are watching. There are two discordant messaging from the presidency. On one hand, the Minister of Information is saying, calm down, the president will act. He's doing something. It's not necessary. On the other hand, spokespersons like Bayo Nanuga is spitting fire and brimstone, calling names. Literally, last week he was trending because he mentioned some names that he says are behind the protest. So what do you make of a discordant messaging from the same institution?
I think you're a very, very good observation you had there. But I think that the president should stamp his foot down and correct his aides, especially Bayo Onanuga, because you see, you cannot be saying, okay, let us plug the roof that is leaking, and the president is working seriously towards that, and then other people are coming and pouring petrol into the fire and say, no, let it burn down, let it burn down. I think it was very, very insensitive. And then, of course, he should call him to order. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, I think, is doing a fantastic job. He's doing a fantastic job, especially when you compare him to previous government ministers that we know. He is doing a fantastic job. And of course, the way to diffuse situations like this is what the man is doing. Because you need to talk to different kinds of groups. You need to talk to traditional rulers. You need to talk to youth. All those sectors that are very, very important. The security agencies need to talk to people also. Because you see, it is our country, it's our democracy. When we say democracy, many people believe that it's just voting. In election time, let's go vote and go home. No. It's a government of the people, by the people, for the people. So it is us. It is not their government and our government. You want to spoil our government. You want to plan against our government. No, it is not like that. I think this kind of orientation has to go into the heads of a lot of people who are already in government to know that, elections are different. Governance is for everybody. Right. And governance, everybody is involved. Everybody's stake is there. So okay. I think this should guide us.
I'm happy with that advisory that's coming from the intelligence man himself. Thank you so much. Mr. Dennis Amakri is the former deputy director of the DSS, joining us as always from the United States. And let me just, have you jackpot, because I keep talking to you from the US. Are you up?
Geoffrey, we live in a global village. You talk to me all the time. So what is the jackpot business? I'm not jackpot. I know more about Nigeria. In fact, I can see more about Nigeria than being inside it.
I don't have access to what you have. Thank you so much, Mr. Amakri. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, always. And to other stories now, governors have remained silent after an 8-hour-long meeting behind closed doors in Abuja. The meeting, which had as part of its agenda the issue of local government autonomy, received briefings from the Nigeria Bar Association, led by its newly elected president and the immediate past one. Although it was expected that the governors will comment on the minimum wage and the planned nationwide protest against the hardship and bad governance, the governors kept mum as they left the venue of the meeting over this issue of end bad governance protest. However, a communique signed by the chairman of the forum acknowledges that the Office of the National Security Advisor notes the concerns regarding the planned nationwide protest, with assurances that the state will be protected. Let's also tell you that the candidate of the African Democratic Congress in the forthcoming governorship election in Edo State, Osararon Ezodowe, claims the people of the state are tired of being ruled by what they describe as the big parties and says the tide is turning within the political space in the state. Speaking in an interview with Channels Television, he condemned last week's shooting at the airport road, which left a police officer dead, and he also shed light on how he intends to boost the economy of the state.
It's very disappointing to see what's happening in my state, Benin City. Mayhem, utter mayhem. And I'm not surprised. When you take a child's property and you hold it up high, at some point your hands will be tired and you bring it down. So the property is coming down, and the people of Edo State, the real owners of Edo State, the masses, will take that property. Time is up for this big political parties. They've been doing this for decades, and it's time to kick them out. This is not who we are. Edo State people can do better than this. This is a terrible example for our kids at home, terrible example about our state, and I am frankly disappointed at the people in charge of government and the people in opposition. And when I say the people in opposition, the big parties. So it's time for a change, and that's why we are in this race, to reset the thinking and the way of governance from this kind of thuggish governance and politics that we see to what it should be or what it could be. If you really want to change the game for your people, increase the GDP from what it is now, the gross domestic product of Edo State, which is our goal. We want to double it in 8 years. If you want to do that, there are certain levers you need to twist, which is the levers of productivity, mostly in the rural areas, because that's where you have enormous potential to increase our GDP. So we want to take development to these places, roads, rural infrastructure, to those places, and encourage farming and processing of those farm produce in the rural areas. So what you see is you immediately create a market. How do you create a market? You create a market by increasing the purchasing power of people. And if you increase the purchasing power of the rural populace, they will come to the market to spend that money.
And that's it on this edition of the program. Thank you so much for your time and, of course, your usual company. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics.